We always think that we are very perfect. We have all the qualities with us. We have all the human qualities, humane qualities. But we have to look at ourselves at all the time. That is the necessary part of our life. We are studying. We all are studying in the university, working in the university. But sometimes how far that we are able to think about ourselves, how to develop internal qualities. This is very important to each and everyone, to our general life. If we are going away from the university or from the student lives, even we can apply these things into our day-to-day life until we depart from this world. What we have to do, we have to develop certain qualities, we have to eliminate certain things within ourselves. This is the focus, what we have to do. So here in this paper I use certain words like wholesome and unwholesome. The wholesome life. Wholesome life. Wholesome qualities means that how far we are mentally balanced. We have to balance mentally. Mentally balanced means we are not biased with our views. We are not have any sort of extreme views. We will not develop certain extremes or biased views within ourselves. That's very important. The biased views or the extreme views means when we judge something, whatever we are doing, whatever we are talking, whatever we are thinking, our judgment will be so neutral. The neutral judgments. Our judgment will not come because of somebody's pressure, or our judgment will not under pressure of due to any reasons. It must be tally with your own norms. We have to have the very centralized judgment within ourselves. That's a very important thing to develop. Our judgment means what? Sometimes we may try to find out what are the rights and what is the good and what's the bad, what is the wholesome and what is the unwholesome. In culture to culture, in country to country, people will define, oh, this is good, this is bad. Oh, this is wholesome, this is unwholesome. In some way or some countries, some things are wholesome. The same thing will not accepted to the another country. But we have a certain measurement that what is really the wholesome or unwholesome. What Buddha say about it, if we are doing any deed, any act, we can do an act or a deed by our mind or our word or physically. If our action, if it is disturbed to somebody, if it is hurt to somebody, if it is hurt to oneself, if it is hurt to both the parties, to somebody or oneself, that act Buddha declared as a bad or unwholesome. We may do act, we may perform an act through our mind, through our body, or verbally. If our actions will disturb to somebody, to hurt to somebody, if it is not pleasant to somebody, if it is produce unhappiness to somebody or to oneself, that action is called as an unwholesome action. That's a universal criteria, universal definition. Then the other hand is the wholesome action is that if our action is produce the happiness, if it is not hurt to somebody, if it is giving the full of happiness to anybody, it's not disturbing to somebody, that action we call as the full of wholesome actions, the good action. It is universal truth. It's a truth to each and every country or each and every culture. It is not a mix with any sort of religion. It's a universal truth. It's beyond the religion. We can apply this theory into any part of the society, anywhere of our life. Before we perform any action, we can judge ourselves. We can do an action through our mind or body or physically. If our action will disturb to somebody, or if it is produce unhappiness, it is unwholesome. If it is not disturbed to somebody, if it is produce happiness, then it is a wholesome action. So the Buddha asks us to develop this wholesome nature. It means that every time, whenever we perform any actions, we have to deeply think about whether our action will disturb to anybody, mentally or physically or verbally. We have to avoid from that action. We should not perform it. If we perform it, then it will definitely produce a great amount of negative energy, which we call the unwholesome action. So we have to have the positive energy. We have to develop the positive energy. It means the wholesome actions. There's a one way to avoid the depression from oneself. That's a great way to avoid the depression. Then we will not able to depress ourselves, because our actions every time, whenever we judge, we are very honest. We know about ourselves that all the actions every time will help to somebody. It produces happiness. It produces great amount of positive energy. It produces a wholesomeness. It's help to the entire fellow beings. So one way that we have to develop ourselves, so not to be a depressed person, to avoid depression, is the wholesome actions we have to perform. It means if we perform certain unwholesome actions, then naturally the reactions will be there. That reaction definitely will depress you yourself. Whenever you think about that your unwholesome actions, you will regret about yourself. You will think about your unwholesome actions, you will regret about yourselves. Whenever you regret, it produces great amount of your negative energy, and you are depressed. You are bound to depressed. You are inviting depressed to yourself. So the first and foremost, think about our actions, physically, verbally or mentally. This physical action or verbal action or mental actions, we have to be very carefully judge ourselves in order to avoid the depression from ourselves. We have to avoid it. Then we will able to have without this negative force within ourselves, and to have a very wholesome life. Wholesome life. Wholesome life is full of positive thinking. There is no trace of negative thinking there. Every time we will think about in the positive way, the correct way, it will generate tremendous positive energy. And again that day, there is another point. When you read the paper, you find that there is a word I mentioned about impermanence. The impermanence it's a soul, universal truth. So we were programmed, we were compelled to believe that everything is permanent. This is the very, very deep meaning is there. The Buddha's teaching, the Buddha mentioned about, yes, we want every actions to be happen as I wanted to be happen.